Afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's Eric Coffin. I'm here from the March 2019 Metal Investor Forum in Toronto, just ahead of the PDAC. I'm here with Darwin Green from Constantine Metals. Some of you, certainly my subscribers, are well aware of the discoveries that Darwin and Garfield and the team made there. I mean, the Palmer VMS project, you're up to 14 million tons now, I think. Very good grades, tons of room for it to get bigger. Several zones have never been touched at all. But I think today, I think it'd be interesting to talk about the assets that really haven't got much press until now, but are about to get a lot of press, and that's your gold assets, because management's intent, basically details to be determined, is to sort of spin those gold assets into a separate entity. So keep in mind, as Darwin is talking about these gold assets, that they are still in Constantine. And if you want to get a piece of these gold assets, the way to do it is to own Constantine, because the shareholders of Constantine will be the majority shareholders of this new gold deal. Can you speak to us about, in sort of top-down terms, the gold project set as it stands right now?
Yeah, well, as you know, we've always had a position in Ontario.
Yeah.
As a management team, we've got a lot of history there and a lot of expertise in the Timmins Belt. And we've got our crown jewel asset in Ontario has been the Croesus, which has got a lot of lore around it. There's big samples in the Royal Ontario Museum, right, famous for some incredibly high grade, exceptionally high grade mineralization. But it sits in a setting, it's a very fertile part of the belt that's seen limited past work, really. I mean, the mining that was done there in the past was, the early part of the 19th century, or 1900s, sorry. But more recently, there's a big multi-million ounce deposit sitting just adjacent to us. It's on what's called the Pipestone Fault, and the Croesus is this very high-grade mineralization that occurs at a very specific geologic environment, but it's part of a 2-kilometer-long vein structure, and there's other parallel vein structures that we control that track back to the main Pipestone break that have seen virtually no drilling on it. So it's a really neat story in itself that hasn't been able to be given the exploration and the capital that we wanted, in part because we were having so much success at Palmer. In addition to that, we've got what's called the Golden Mile. It's a very large land package and a major flexure, all the right elements, overburden covered. And our sort of theme there, I guess, in Ontario in general is going to these parts of the belt, that have seen lesser exploration but have all the right elements. I think that's what you need to do in these mature districts that certainly have the pedigree.
And of course, I guess the most recent acquisition, more or less, is the Johnstone Project up in Alaska. Really, I know you're just finishing a 43-101, not a resource estimate, just the kind of the exploration statement, but some of the historic stuff I could find, there's some wicked drill holes off this project.
Yeah, they open your eyes up for sure. It's an exciting project. Really neat history. It was discovered in the 80s by a company called Anaconda. Things got nationalized. They went out of business. In Chile, long history there. Westman came in and picked up the project, and they were actually looking at direct shipping ore from the deposit, about 900 nautical miles down to the Premier Mill in Stewart, and trucking up to that mill. It was a little hungry for feed at the time, and then Westman eventually got taken up by Boliden, and it sort of sat there, and it's really sat there since 1995 without anything done on it. Not for any reason other than it wasn't available on the market. Right. We were approached by the owners, and we jumped at it. And the owners, in this case, it's a Alaska Native Corporation, Cook Inlet Regional, and it's important for your viewers to understand. In Alaska, it's kind of the model for land claim settlements, and sort of having deals with the Native Corps is really a fantastic situation. Red Dog Mine is on Nana lands. It's a great situation. If you had to choose one landlord, that it would be them. But yeah, it's 70 meters at 20 grams, 100 meters at 10 grams gold, and then for each of those, you've got 5 to 10% zinc to go with it too, and then 0.5% to 1.5% copper. So it's a really neat and unusual project in that it's got these base metals with the high-grade gold.
People have mentioned, I don't know that it's accurate at all. People have mentioned Johnson and Eskay in the same sentence, and Eskay is kind of one of those archetype deposits that everybody wants to compare themselves to, but it's one of the few I can think of where you get that combination of length, grade, and kind of base metals thrown in the side.
Yeah,
I mean,
particularly the zinc, which is even more unusual, and a lot of people don't know that about SK, but it had a lot of zinc in it. And a couple of reasons for the, I guess, the comparison. These rocks, the deposit did form in submarine volcanic rock, so that's where sort of VMS deposits form. The age of the rocks is actually the same. They're both Jurassic age rocks. And some of the alteration that you're seeing is sort of strata-bound or strata-controlled mineralization. That said, some of the deposit geology and morphology is a little more epithermal. So it's kind of like on this spectrum, if you will, between epithermal and a VMS. It's like if you had an epithermal just below an actual VMS system in a shallow marine environment. And another comparable we've looked at recently, someone brought to our attention, was a hot madden.
Actually, yeah.
You know, similar kind of high-grade base metals, in that case maybe more copper with great gold values, and a real question mark, what is the deposit model for this? Ultimately, we don't care. I mean, it helps you from an exploration standpoint, and what we see, what we care about, it's a project that basically got shut down while it was just getting going. You know, there's some critical mass there and a nice deposit already. We can't really, we have to do our own work to get a 43101 on it, but there's a great starting point, and there's some very clear opportunity to find more. There's like a 13-kilometer trend of showings, and 4 or 5 kilometers to the north, there is 13 meters of 8.5 grams gold, 4.5%, 5% zinc. So very similar.
That was a drill hole, or
that was
trench?
a drill hole. That was a drill hole. Yep.
But it's still, it's not cut off.
No, not at all. Westman didn't even drill that. That was something, one of Anaconda's early things, and they got focused on this other area. So there's all kinds of blue sky on this, and it's an environment that we're really comfortable exploring and working in, obviously with the VMS and Palmer. So.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm really looking forward to 43101 in part just to get my hands on some of that data. I mean, when you first acquired it, I kind of went digging around and I found a few things, and it's a really impressive looking project, and that's a project that can clearly throw off insanely good drill holes. But on top of that, we can't be that far away now, I guess, from a PA on Palmer, right? We've got to be fairly close?
That's right. I mean, it's a major milestone for us, obviously. We've worked really hard growing the deposit. Last year, we took it from 8 million tons, up collectively between indicated and inferred up to 14. So we feel like we've blown through that sort of critical size threshold. The AG zone resource, we didn't get that out till just before Christmas, so it kind of reset the clock on the PA timing, which is not a bad problem to have because it was such a significant resource that we were able to generate there. But yeah, next several weeks we hope to be working towards conclusion of that. So we're excited about it. It's definitely going to be a major milestone, and we think we'll establish what our conviction that this is a high margin system here, and with a lot more to be found.
I think this is a great story. I mean, I've always loved the Constantine story. I mean, a great group of guys, really strong technical group, essentially new discovery. There's so much room to still grow that project, and you can go and you can look at Constantine's website and take a look at Palmer. I mean, it's got a lot of logistical advantages. Don't be spooked by the Alaska part of it. But on top of that, they've always had a good project set in, especially in and around the Timmins camp, that really the market doesn't pay attention to because it only got worked on sporadically. I know we added Johnstone in part so because you were thinking about this idea of the spin out, and I think, from my point of view, my opinion as a newsletter writer, as an outside observer, I think it's fair to say that the valuation that Constantine has now is fair to low for Palmer, or it's fair to low for the gold projects. It's way low for the two of them combined, and management recognizing this is why this whole spin out, however it's actually going to be done, is being worked on now. And it's a great time to look at this, one, because we're heading into the summer exploration season for all of this, although keep in mind the gold projects don't have that much seasonality to them, but also because you're coming in ahead of this transaction. So if you're buying Constantine now, you're basically going to be getting some of these gold assets in the spin out, because the biggest shareholders are going to be current Constantine shareholders.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, you guys are big Constantine shareholders
that's
yourselves,
right.
so I'm assuming you're not going to shortchange yourself and the rest of us in the process.
Well, it's a very good point. Yeah.
Okay.
No, absolutely.
So now's a great time to be looking at it. Thanks for coming by and thanks for presenting.
Yeah, thanks so much, Eric.
Okay.
Take care.